Do you struggle with setting your boundaries? Or worse, do you set your boundaries and then fail to enforce them? Why is not enforcing your boundaries worse than not having any boundaries at all? Well, this video is all about boundaries, setting them, enforcing them, because boundaries is a form of self-love. Keeping your boundaries is a critical key to self-love. If you don't have boundaries in place, your relationships will be unhealthy or draining. But how do we set and navigate the challenging territory of boundaries? It is very possible for you to have healthy boundaries, and if you don't know where to begin, I'm here to help. Hey, my name is Brianna from Self Love Starts Now, and welcome. A sacred place, why you should have boundaries. Have you ever heard my body is a temple? Many people say it but don't understand what it actually means. My body is a temple is a famous historical quote from the Bible. The writer suggests that our body house the Spirit of God. Whether you believe in God or not, you probably know that a temple is a sacred place. It is a place to be revered and holy. Architecturally, it's just a building, but spiritually, it is a sacred place. And that's what it means for your body to be a temple. So imagine a house with a fence around it. Symbolically, you are a house and your house is your temple. Does keeping a fence around your house make you feel uncomfortable? Many people feel they are boxing themselves in and limiting their lives in some way. There is a popular quote from the fictional character Meredith Grey from Grey's Anatomy. Boundaries don't keep other people out. They fence you in. Life is messy. That's how we're made. So you could waste your life drawing lines, or you could live your life crossing them. Boy, does that sound good. If I was at an open mic, I would be snapping my fingers for sure. However, that is a distorted way to think about boundaries, and that philosophy will open your doors to abuse. I love people, and having a heart for people, I don't see boundaries as keeping people out. Instead, I look at boundaries as keeping behaviors out. For example, say your dad belittles you and often calls you stupid anytime you make a mistake. The boundary would not be to keep your dad out. It would be to keep out those hurtful comments. Access. Just like a fence surrounds your property line, your boundaries determine what you will and will not accept in your space and in different areas of your space. Keeping with the house analogy, after people have been allowed past your fence and onto your property, the question is now, whom will you let into your home? And will you give anyone the copy of your house key? You see, there are levels to boundaries. Just because you let someone into your life doesn't mean they should have full access. There are intimate parts of who we are, and those parts should be cherished by those we choose to share them with. So that means your house, your rules. Period. People can't just go and come as they please. Letting in the wrong people could mean your home is vandalized. So long as people respect the boundaries you have established, they could stay in your life. If they choose to not respect your boundaries, they are choosing to not be in your life. People change, and setting a new boundary actually gives them the opportunity to. Without that boundary, they will most likely continue that hurtful behavior. Ultimately, you have the key. Even if you gave a copy of that key to someone in your life in a certain season of your life, it doesn't mean they have full access indefinitely. You could always change the locks. When people do not treat you with respect, they should no longer have full access to you. Help, I don't have boundaries. Don't have boundaries? Actually, you do. It's not a matter of having boundaries. You're just ignoring them. Boundaries are like invisible internal lines that we don't want crossed. And they look different for different people in every season. Creating boundaries happens intrinsically, even subconsciously. We all have boundaries, but we don't all enforce them. And thus, sometimes we don't even know our boundaries in the first place. Let me explain. We all have different things that hurt us, for example. Because we are all different, boundaries help us create a distinct line between one another's behavior. This may sound like a separation, but remember, we all have boundaries internally anyway. This is how we know when someone has crossed the line or someone was out of line, right? You may not have made up an actual rule like, I don't like for people to touch me in this way. But if someone came up to you and touched you in that way, you would say, this person crossed the line. So you already have a line, whether you verbalized it or not, whether you realized it or not, we all have these lines. There is no true physical line, but there is an internal line within us all. And for many of us, it's different. For example, one mother may love to cook even for her adult children. Her adult children may ask her to cook their favorite meal, and not only does she like it, but she finds joy and just loves to do that for them. For another mother who could be just as loving and caring and nurturing, that same ask is a chore or burden for her because of anything, because of her skill set or energy levels or the amount of free time she has or her schedule. What one mother is excited to do, another could feel disrespected by. Although they are asked the same exact thing, different people have different boundaries. Some people hate when people curse around them. Others find cursing to be a form of expression or culture and simply wouldn't feel they are being themselves if they had to speak without cursing. People do have different boundaries. So how can you identify what your boundaries, which trust me, you already have, are? Boundaries protect. Boundaries protect our hearts. Here are some areas that require boundaries. Think about each one of these and identify where you need that invisible line to be drawn. Mental/emotional, time, energy, sexual, physical, like personal space, online presence, personal property. Each one of these should be protected in some capacity. How to enforce boundaries politely. So we all have the job of communicating to others what our boundaries are, whether through our words, actions, body language, facial expressions, and etc., etc. Communicating your boundaries clearly through words is probably the best way to go. Yes, sometimes it feels like, shouldn't they know this? But when you need to enforce a boundary, it can be hard to figure out how to communicate it constructively. You are not a doormat. You are an image bearer of God with deep worth and value. That means your boundaries matter. Take them seriously. It is important to enforce your boundaries because boundaries will determine how people learn to treat you. Your main responsibility is to make sure you have articulated your boundaries clearly. Ensure clarity by speaking directly and without filler words. For example, you could say, I don't like when you do that. It makes me feel uncomfortable. This is much more direct than saying, I sorta don't like when you do that. it kind of makes me feel uncomfortable. Keeping it short and simple is polite enough. After that, it is their responsibility to be polite to you by honoring your boundaries. Being polite means being considerate and respectful. If you are having a difficult time communicating your boundaries with a particular person, ask yourself, is this person respectful and considerate? If they are not being respectful of your boundaries, that doesn't mean you should disrespect them back. What it does mean is you have a greater obligation to enforce your boundaries with this individual. If someone shows no consideration to your boundaries, you could see just why boundaries with them are needed even more. Boundaries in personal and professional relationships. People often want to know how to navigate different boundaries in different relationships. Boundaries with bosses, boundaries with coworkers, boundaries with parents, boundaries with boyfriends, boundaries with boyfriends' parents. I could go on and on. The truth is, it doesn't matter if you need boundaries with your best friend or the Amazon delivery guy. Once you understand healthy boundaries, you realize it's all the same. A boundary is a boundary. Set your boundary, communicate it clearly, then enforce it. There are some areas of your life people may have access to that others don't. That's a good thing. It means you have a healthy range of relationships. There are other boundaries that may just be all across the board. They go for everyone in your life. Like, for example, how you want people to speak to you. No one should ever have multiple opportunities to disrespect and cross your boundaries. Often we make the mistake of allowing those closest to us to be an exception to the rule. Because we love them so much, we allow them to hurt us over and over again. This is dysfunctional and backwards. The people closest to us should respect and honor us the most. Not having healthy boundaries and relationships can also foster a codependent relationship dynamic. Keep this in mind as you set boundaries with the different relationships in your life. When boundaries bring conflict. Breaking news. Not everyone will like your boundaries, and there will be some people that don't understand them. They have gotten used to a certain relational dynamic, and now you're asking them to change. Understand this adjustment may feel overwhelming, so be patient. Boundaries are best established before you get hurt, not when you're at your last straw with someone. Know when people are trying to learn your new boundaries versus when people are being manipulative. Unhealthy people will take your boundaries and then flip them as if you're encroaching on their boundaries. They may even share that their feelings are hurt by your boundaries. Please beware. This is a form of gaslighting. For example, hey, I know this may come as a surprise, but I don't want to have sex anymore because I feel it has become a distraction in our relationship. We don't communicate the way we used to, and I want to enjoy sex in a more committed relationship. I understand if you don't want to stay together, but this is the decision I made. How could you change our relationship without asking me? I thought I could trust you. You never mentioned this to me before. It is selfish for you to change things now. I'm really hurt you made this decision without me. You can establish boundaries at any point of a relationship. If you believe your boundaries are healthy and reasonable, do not let others make you feel bad about them. The more healthy you become, the more you will attract healthy individuals into your life. Have you ever heard, "Don't cast your pearls before swine"? It is a famous saying of Jesus, and it's my advice to you. This is not to call the people in your life who you love pigs. It's an analogy. You see, just as pigs don't appreciate pearls. Some people just don't appreciate what you have to offer. It's sad, but it's a hard reality you must face when navigating boundaries. It takes two to tango. Respect other people's boundaries. As you enforce your boundaries, be mindful to respect other people's boundaries. I have counseled people who have told me about relationships in their lives where they didn't feel respected. Name calling is a common offense. I'll respond, well, you could draw your line at name calling, since that clearly hurt your feelings and belittled you. I hear back almost every time, well, I name call too. Listen, friend. The whole point of boundaries is to protect yourself from unhealthy behavior, keeping out all that is toxic. But you can't keep toxic out if you're toxic too. Hello? As they say, it takes two to tango. If you have multiple toxic relationships in your life, you may have a larger role to play in them than you think. Respect is a value, so demanding respect is meaningless if you are not willing to give it. Boundaries and self-love. Thinking about boundaries you want to be established in your life, you embark on a self-development journey that helps form your identity. Enforcing boundaries may come with unexpected challenges in your relationships. It may also come with unexpected challenges within. If you start to feel a wave of anxiety come over you with the thought of establishing boundaries, this is probably a sign of insecurities and a lack of self-respect. If that's you right now, it's not too late. You could grow to love yourself. And people who love themselves respect themselves. Every person on this planet is equal in value and made in the image of God. No one was created to be abused and mistreated. You are worth so much more. Healthy self-love means you enforce your boundaries. Start setting and enforcing your boundaries today. If you know you need serious help in this area, please feel free to visit me at selflovestartsnow.com. And if you are just getting onto your self-love journey, I really think you would love this video. Love you. Bye.